The rain was coming down in sheets, a proper deluge that rattled against my windows and made my old house creak like a ship at sea. It was past midnight, and I was curled up on the sofa, nursing a mug of lukewarm tea and trying to lose myself in a particularly dense historical documentary about the fall of the Roman Empire. My life, by contrast, was a quiet, predictable affair. I was a librarian, a creature of habit and comfortable silences. And my biggest excitement usually involved finding a misplaced first edition. Then the doorbell rang. I froze. Who on earth? My street wasn't exactly known for its late-night callers, unless it was a stray cat or, once, a very confused delivery driver with a pizza for number 17. The bell rang again. Longer this time, a persistent, almost polite chime that cut through the drumming rain. Sighing, I dragged myself up, pulling my ancient, faded bathrobe tighter. Who is it? I called through the closed door, my voice muffled by the storm and a distinct lack of enthusiasm. A deep, resonant voice answered, surprisingly clear despite the downpour. It had an old-world cadence, almost theatrical. Good evening, madam. I apologized for the hour, but I seemed to have lost my way. My commands encountered an unforeseen difficulty. Might I trouble you for a moment of your time? Lost his way in this weather? My skepticism flared, but so did a tiny spark of that ingrained British politeness that always gets me into trouble. I peered through the peephole. Standing on my porch was a man, tall and impossibly elegant, even soaked to the bone. He wore a dark, impeccably tailored suit that looked like it belonged in a period drama, and his pale face was framed by dark, slicked-back hair. He looked utterly out of place, like a misplaced antique in a modern world. He shivered slightly, or perhaps it was just the illusion of the rain. Look, it's really late, I began, already reaching for the lock, my hand hovering. I'm about to go to bed. Can I help you with directions or something? My phone's inside. I could look up a taxi for you. He offered a small, almost imperceptible smile, a flash of something ancient in his eyes. Just a moment of your hospitality, if you would be so kind. The elements are rather unforgiving tonight. And I assure you, a taxi would be quite futile. I hesitated. He didn't look threatening, just ... anachronistic and profoundly uncomfortable. And frankly, a bit pathetic standing there in the pouring rain. My inner voice, the one that always overrides common sense, whispered, just let him in for a second. He's probably freezing. You can give him a towel and send him on his way. Oh, fine, I muttered, more to myself than to him. And with a weary sigh, I pulled open the door, stepping back into the warmth of my hallway. Just come in, I suppose, if you're going to stand there all night. The moment the words left my lips, a subtle shift occurred. It wasn't dramatic, no flash of lightning or ominous music. It was more like the air in my hallway suddenly gained a density, a quiet hum I hadn't noticed before. The man stepped over the threshold, and the rain, which had been lashing against him moments before, seemed to simply stop. Not outside, but around him. He was perfectly dry. Not a single drop clung to his immaculate suit. He extended a hand, a long, slender hand with perfectly manicured nails. His grip was cool, almost cold, but firm. Count Alaric Volkov at your service, and I assure you I won't be standing all night. I believe I've just been invited to stay. My jaw dropped. Count? Invited? My mind, still half asleep and reeling from the sudden dryness of a man who had been drenched moments ago, struggled to catch up. Invited? What are you talking about? I just meant coming out of the rain for a minute. You can't just stay. Alaric's smile widened, revealing not fangs, but simply very white, very straight teeth. Ah, but the ancient laws are quite specific, my dear. A verbal invitation freely given to cross the threshold of a private dwelling. Once uttered, it is binding. He gestured around my rather cluttered hallway, his gaze lingering on a stack of unread library books. Charming, a little lived in, perhaps, but charming nonetheless. And that, dear reader, is how I accidentally invited a vampire into my home. Then this happened. He didn't try to bite me. He didn't try to hypnotize me. He didn't even try to seduce me. Instead, Count Alaric Volkov, ancient creature of the night, became my incredibly particular, utterly anachronistic, and surprisingly domestic roommate. The first week was a blur of polite yet firm redecorating suggestions. My dear, this throw pillow arrangement lacks symmetry, he'd declare, rearranging my cushions with a flick of his wrist, as if conducting an orchestra. And this television set, while a fascinating contraption, truly clashes with the antique mahogany of your grandmother's side table. Perhaps we could drape it. He seemed to have an endless supply of obscure, velvet-bound books that he'd read by the dim glow of a single lamp, occasionally muttering critiques of modern prose. Such brevity. Where's the flourish? The grandiosity? My sleep schedule, already erratic, became non-existent. He was naturally nocturnal. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. to the clinking of teacups from the kitchen. He developed a bizarre fondness for Earl Grey, insisting it was the only civilized beverage, or the faint rhythmic thwack of him practicing fencing in the living room. One must maintain one's reflexes, he'd explain, casually parrying an imaginary foe with a rolled-up newspaper, narrowly missing my antique vase. The modern world, while lacking in duels, still presents unexpected challenges. He was also, to my utter bewilderment, a meticulous cleaner. My previously lived-in home began to sparkle. He had polished the silverware until it gleamed, dust shelves I hadn't touched in years, and even, once, attempted to organize my chaotic spice rack by historical origin. Cumin, a spice of ancient lineage, should not be relegated to the same shelf as this garlic powder abomination, he'd sniff, holding up a jar with disdain. A true tragedy for the palate. My attempts to get him to leave were met with polite, unyielding confusion. "But you invited me, did you not?" he'd ask, his dark eyes wide and innocent, as if I were suggesting something truly scandalous. "Are you rescinding your invitation?" Such a breach of etiquette would be most unfortunate, and quite impossible, I assure you, unless the ownership of this charming abode were to change hands. I learned from a frantic late-night internet search that, yes, in some lore, an invitation could be rescinded, but the thought of telling this impeccably polite, if utterly bizarre, creature to get out felt strangely rude, almost barbaric. One Tuesday morning, or rather my Tuesday morning and his Tuesday evening, I came home from work to find him engrossed in a cooking show, perched on the edge of the sofa, a look of intense concentration on his pale face. "Fascinating," he murmured, not looking up as I dropped my bag. "This Gordon Ramsay fellow has a rather spirited approach to culinary arts, though I must say his use of garlic is quite excessive. A true tragedy for the palate, as I have previously noted." He then proceeded to offer me a perfectly brewed cup of Earl Grey and a detailed critique of the show's contestant soufflé. It was then watching him critique a celebrity chef with the gravitas of a seasoned food critic that I realized the true "then this happened" moment. My life hadn't become a horror movie or a gothic romance. It had become a bizarre, supernatural slice-of-life comedy. He was still a vampire, yes, and I still occasionally worried about the whole blood thing, though he seemed content with a very specific, ethically sourced, and surprisingly expensive brand of synthetic blood substitute he ordered online, delivered discreetly in plain brown boxes. He was still a pain in my perfectly ordinary, mundane existence. He still insisted on wearing a cravat to breakfast, but he was my pain, and honestly, my house had never been cleaner, and I now had someone to debate the merits of historical fashion with, even if he did insist that my modern jeans were woefully lacking in structural integrity. My accidental invitation hadn't led to terror or forbidden love. It had led to the most unexpected and strangely endearing roommate situation imaginable. And I suppose, in its own way, that was far more surprising than any fangs or coffins could have been. My life, once a quiet library, had become a rather eccentric, perpetually clean, and surprisingly engaging open book. Sources and related content